The first thing I noticed was the smell. It cut through the recycled air of the derelict station like rusted blood and burned plastic, sharp enough to sting the back of my throat even through my helmet's filters. The salvage beacon had promised low hazard, moderate value, which was usually code for collapsed bulkheads and fried circuits, not whatever this was. My boots echoed as I stepped through the broken airlock. Lights flickered in dying pulses along the corridor, each one revealing more claw marks etched into the walls. Not weapon fire. Not tools.
Panic.
Just another ghost station, I muttered, more to steady myself than anything else. Humanity had learned early in the galactic age that abandoned places were rarely empty in the ways that mattered. The station belonged to the Kelry, an avian reptilian species known more for commerce than cruelty. They ran transport hubs on the edge of civilized space, trading with anyone who paid. But something had gone wrong here. Power readings were inconsistent. No life signs, at least none registered by my scanner. I followed the main corridor toward what had once been a holding bay. Cargo cages lined the walls, most of them twisted open, metal bars bent outward as if something inside had forced its way free. That should have been my cue to turn around. Instead, I heard it. A sound so faint I almost dismissed it as interference, a thin, broken whimper. I froze. Hello. My voice echoed back, swallowed by the cavernous bay. The sound came again, clearer this time. Fear, unmistakable and raw. I approached slowly, pulse hammering. My scanner still showed nothing alive. Whatever was making that sound was either shielded or too weak to register. At the far end of the bay sat a single intact cage. It was small, no bigger than a livestock crate. Energy bars shimmered faintly, running on emergency power. Inside, curled into the corner like a wounded animal, was an alien girl. She couldn't have been more than 16 by human standards. Her skin was a pale lavender, mottled with darker patterns that pulsed faintly as she breathed. Two long, translucent ears drooped against her skull, torn at the edges. Her eyes, too large for her narrow face, locked onto me the moment I stepped into view. They were filled with terror. She scrambled backward, pressing herself against the bars, clawed hands raised defensively. A broken collar blinked red around her neck, its restraint field flickering erratically. I swore softly. She wasn't cargo. She was a prisoner.
No, worse.
She was abandoned. The Kelry didn't trade in slaves, but others did. Raiders, smugglers, fringe empires that treated sentient life like inventory. This station must have changed hands before it died. I knelt slowly, keeping my movements deliberate. Easy, I said, lowering my rifle and setting it on the floor. I'm not here to hurt you. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the gesture. Her breathing slowed just a fraction. I scanned the cage. Power levels were critically low. When the station finally went dark, the field would fail. And whatever had torn open the other cages would come back. Damn it, I whispered. Protocol was clear. Independent salvagers like me were not equipped or authorized to extract living sentients without clearance. The penalties ranged from fines to blacklisting to prison. But protocol didn't account for the way her hands trembled, or the faint scars crossing her wrists and neck. She was someone's problem, the galaxy would say. I was human, and humans had never been very good at looking away. The cage controls were damaged, but not beyond repair. I bypassed the external lock, fingers moving quickly as alarms whispered in my ears. The energy bars flickered, dimmed, and vanished. She didn't move. For a long moment, neither did I. Then she took one hesitant step forward, as if the air itself might punish her for leaving the cage. When nothing happened, she collapsed to her knees, shaking. I shrugged out of my pack and wrapped her in a thermal blanket. She flinched at the touch, then clutched the fabric like it was the only solid thing left in the universe. "I've got you," I said quietly. "You're not alone anymore." She looked up at me, eyes wide and searching. Slowly, she pressed her forehead against my chest, an instinctive gesture of trust or desperation. My suit recorded a spike in my heart rate. I knew then there was no turning back. Getting her off the station was only the beginning of the trouble. The moment my ship cleared the station's gravity well, my comms lit up with automated warnings. Unauthorized biological extraction. Unregistered sentient on board. I shut them off and jumped to slip space before anyone could respond. She slept through the transition, curled in the co-pilot seat, blanket pulled tight. Her breathing evened out for the first time since I'd found her. I ran scans while she slept. Her species, Xiren, were rare, semi-telepathic, and highly sought after for reasons that made my stomach turn. Empathic sensitivity, neural plasticity, living tools for those who knew how to break them. The collar around her neck confirmed it. Conditioning device, behavioral compliance, the kind used to erase will, piece by piece. Someone had tried. They hadn't finished the job. She woke hours later, confused and panicked until I handed her a nutrient pack and mimed eating. She copied me cautiously, then devoured it with surprising ferocity. When she finished, she hesitated, then placed one delicate hand over her heart and spoke a single word.
Kale.
Her name, I guessed. "I'm Marcus," I said, returning the gesture. "You're safe, Kale. As long as you're with me." The words felt like a promise and like a challenge. The galaxy noticed us 2 days later. A patrol vessel intercepted my ship near a trade lane, weapons hot. They hailed me, demanding surrender of the illicit cargo. Kale sensed it before I told her. Her patterns darkened, her body tensing as fear rolled off her in waves I could almost feel. I made my choice. I transmitted everything. The scans, the collar data, the station logs showing slave trafficking. I accused them, openly, of enforcing a system that allowed this to happen. There was a long silence. Then the patrol captain spoke, voice tight. "Human, you are out of line." "Maybe," I said, "but she's not cargo. She's a person. And if you take her, you're no better than the ones who put her in that cage. They could have arrested me.
Shot me.
Taken her anyway. Instead, they disengaged weapons." "Proceed," the captain said quietly. "We saw nothing. The fallout was extensive. My license was suspended. Contracts vanished overnight. Some ports refused me entry. Others welcomed me with quiet respect. Word spread the way it always does. A human found an abandoned alien girl in a cage.
And chose her."
Kale stayed with me. Recovery wasn't fast. Some nights she woke screaming, clutching at a collar that was no longer there. Other days she stared out into space, lost in memories she couldn't yet share. But she learned languages, star charts, human jokes that made no sense to anyone else.
And she laughed.
The first time she laughed, really laughed, I had to turn away so she wouldn't see my eyes. Years passed. When the Xiren finally found us, it wasn't with warships. It was with gratitude. They offered rewards, titles, more credits than I could spend in a lifetime. I refused most of it. Asked only that Kale be allowed to choose her own path.
She did.
She stood before her people, scars visible, voice steady, and told them what humans were.
Fragile, she said.
Short-lived. Reckless. Then she looked at me. But when the galaxy abandons you, they choose. Humanity earned something that day. Not power. Not fear.
Trust.
And all because one human walked into a dead station, heard a frightened sound from a cage, and decided that some rules were never worth following. In a universe full of watchers, humans became known for one thing above all else. When someone was left behind, we went back for them. Kale left my ship on her own feet. That mattered to both of us. The Zyran delegation waited on the platform, tall figures draped in living silks, their minds brushing the edges of thought like distant music. They watched her approach with reverence, but they did not rush her. They had learned, she told me later, that healing could not be commanded. She stopped before them, then turned back to me. For a moment, I saw the girl from the cage again, thin, shaking, eyes too big for her face. Then she straightened. The patterns along her skin brightened, no longer erratic, but steady and strong. "You could come," she said softly in halting standard. "With me." I smiled. "You don't need me anymore." She studied me the way only Zyran could, searching not my words, but the intent beneath them. Then she nodded, accepting the truth of it. She stepped forward, then hesitated, and did something no Zyran custom recorded. She embraced me, not as a subject to a rescuer, not as a debt to be repaid, as family. When she finally walked away, the platform felt unbearably empty. But it wasn't the hollow silence I'd known before. It was the quiet that comes after something meaningful has been completed. I returned to my ship alone. For a while, that was how it stayed. I took smaller jobs, avoided attention, let the story fade into rumor and half-remembered legend. It didn't. Across the trade lanes, across species lines, a phrase began to circulate in quiet places where frightened beings still hid. Find human. Because humans had a reputation now. We didn't always win wars. We didn't always have the biggest ships. We weren't the oldest or the wisest or the strongest. But when someone was trapped, when someone was caged, when someone was abandoned, and the galaxy decided it was easier not to see, humans noticed. And sometimes one of us made a choice. Years later, I received a single message. No encryption. No demands. Just an image. Kale stood beneath an open sky on her home world, free and smiling, surrounded by children who looked at her the way she once looked at me, with hope. Below it were 3 words, written carefully in standard. You chose first. I leaned back in my pilot's chair, staring at the stars. In a universe that often measured worth by profit, power, or fear, humanity had become known for something else entirely. We chose compassion. And that choice echoed farther than any weapon ever could.